I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 146. This one's with Dan Taylor and Chris Fason. Man, Chris, I hope I'm saying that right. Like Jason with an F. Fason. It still sounds wonky to me. But it's with Dan and Chris, and we're talking about comic books and how they got into writing with Dan and drawing with Chris, comic books. And they've got a new book coming out called Star Marshals. It's great to talk to them. They're a lot of fun. They've known each other for a long time, so it's always a good time when you have two old friends that get to talk. First up, the Star Marshals crowdsourced funding is going up, I think, tomorrow, which would be Tuesday the 27th. Either way, go to the website. If it's not up yet, you can sign up to get notified once it launches. And the campaign is at zoop.gg/c/Star Marshals. StarMarshals. But yeah, make sure you go on there and throw in some shekels when the funding opportunity starts. If you'd like to follow Dan, you can follow him on Twitter at Dan L. Taylor or on Blue Sky, dantaylor.bsky.social. I'm still not sure how Blue Sky works. And then with Chris, follow him on Instagram at Fason Art, FASONART. But yeah, make sure you go on to their Zoop campaign and back the new book, Star Marshals. It's going to be great. I appreciate them for coming on. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Feral Giant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Where are y'all originally from? And you can each answer in your own time.
I'll go on top. I'll go first since I'm on top. This is like the Brady Bunch. Yeah, Dan Taylor here. I am from Southern California, from Orange County, California. 40 minutes south of LA, about 2 hours north of, hour and a half, 2 hours north of San Diego, home of Disneyland and the Angels baseball and the Mighty Ducks. But yeah, I was born and raised Orange County. I'm as native Orange County as they get. I lived there for 51 years before moving to the Nashville area, where I now reside, and I think it extended my life. So I'm a California boy, currently living in Nashville.
You may be the one person in the world to be like, man, Nashville traffic ain't that bad.
Oh, it's adorable when they complain about traffic here. I mean, they're traffic, and I'm like you have no idea, people. But and it's thrown. My daughter who's 7, she rides with me, and she'll go, "Oh, Tennessee drivers." I'm like, right? No,
it's Ohio drivers who have moved to Tennessee. I'll stand by that statement.
The way the Tennessee drivers slow down for a fender bender is amazing.
Oh yeah,
California, we'll just boop right by it. they have to close down 3 lanes for work being done on the shoulder. It's
Yeah.
eventually your highways will grow up. You call them interstates, but once you start calling them freeways, then you'll understand how they all work.
God, man, the slander has already begun.
All right. Well, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I still live in Alabama. I'm actually down about an hour south of Birmingham right now. Uh, I don't know. I've been here all my life. I don't know much else. I try to get out though, a little bit.
Here, this is going to be this. Please answer appropriately. What
Okay.
team do you support?
Roll Tide. Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
Actually, my family's all Alabama. I don't care as much.
Okay.
I think they're just fun to watch a competitive game. I don't have like any Alabama hats or anything,
Okay. I used to, so I don't know if you know, I'm based in Knoxville, Tennessee. So go Vols.
Gotcha.
And it
Respect.
took me until I was in my late 20s. I was like, oh yeah, these are a bunch of 18-year-old kids. I don't give a shit.
Right. That's my whole thing. It's like, they're just kids. Why do I want them to murder each other? I don't care.
Yeah. It's still fun. We beat Alabama this year. Last year is very exciting. We hadn't done it in a lot of years. So it felt very good.
Yeah. I had a rough end of last year, so I didn't catch anything. I got divorced, and that was fun.
Oh man, there's a lot of twists and turns in this podcast.
A dark turn already.
My God, Lord. This turned into a country song, man. You go to Nashville and we start writing country songs.
Three Southern boys here now. Or an adopted Southern boy.
Now it's turned into a Leonard Skinner song.
There we go.
So we'll go the opposite way. We'll have Chris answer first. What did your folks do for a living?
My dad was a truck driver, and my mom was a loan officer with a credit union.
My dad was a truck driver too for 40 something years.
Yeah, my dad, he was a welder when I was real little, but then he started driving probably when I was maybe 10 or so. So he did that for a good 30 years before he retired.
Wow. Dan?
My dad worked in the aerospace industry, originally with McDonnell Douglas, and then they got bought out by Rockwell, who got bought out by Boeing. So he worked for all 3 of those companies, and his pension just rolled with all of them. So yeah, he was on the team that worked on the B-1B back in the day. And then mom, she was just a mom.
Okay.
Yeah, growing up, she had a babysitting gig on the side. Daycare, nice. But other than that, just a mom.
And this goes for you, like Chris, were you always into art as a kid? And Dan, were you always into writing as a kid?
Yeah, you want to go first, Dan? Let's go.
Yeah, I will always go first. Let's set the standard here. Chris. Okay. Well, when we get to how we made story, you'll understand the relationship Chris and I have. But no, I've always been a creative kid. I did draw a lot, and I actually thought I'd be drawing cartoons or animation or comics when I was younger. But writing really took over when I don't know when I was in my 8 or 9 years old, maybe. My goal about that point is, I've discovered Dungeons and Dragons and creating stories that way. I loved Saturday morning cartoons, but I also loved situation comedies. I kind of, if you'd read Hero Happy Hour and their upcoming Star Marshals, it's very sitcom type writing. Mm-hmm. It's talking heads, punchlines, joke. I try to have a gag every page type of thing, and that's what I learned with sitcoms. Have a laugh every 30 seconds. But no, writing has been a big part because when I went to college at Cal State Long Beach, I majored in film and minored in creative writing. My whole goal was to be a screenwriter director, and so yeah, writing has always been because I don't know, I think I'm too lazy to be an artist. Our writing, our art takes discipline and time to hone. And it's, it's just right while writing, if you use a keyboard, yeah, I mean, it takes, honing as well, but you just, your first draft, you don't have all the adverbs in, and in the second draft, you add the adverbs. That's pretty much my goal to writing.
I had the opposite experience. It took me 40 years to learn how to write. Like I could draw and stuff, but learning how to write, it was almost like I had to zone in like a football player or something and have to get into writing, but it's taken me a long time to get here. But
I'm generally a smart ass, and I think that is better displayed through writing than artwork. And I think that's why I went with writing. And you know what? That just came to my mind. And that's so I just had an epiphany right then and there, right here on your podcast. I'm a writer because I'm a smart ass, not an artist.
I'll drop in a radio drop there. Exclusive.
There we go.
And Chris, for you, were you always into art as a kid?
Yeah, I my first love was the comic strips in the newspapers, because my grandfather had the newspaper every day, so I always got new comic strips every day, and I would draw, Trace, Garfield, or whatever, and then I got into Bloom County as I got older, and of course Calvin and Hobbes when it was happening, and it was that was my first love, and I thought that's what I wanted to do, was to do comic strips, but then trying to come up with 365 gags a year, just that's daunting. I mean, because I'm not naturally a writer. I am writing some stuff, but it's kind of a learning process for me there. And then and of course, like Dan said, the Saturday morning cartoons were always huge, and coming home and watching Scooby-Doo in the afternoons, and then Gilligan's Island afterwards, and just taking art classes in school because they were available. And I was okay, I really like doing this. I like drawing. I didn't really think that was going to be a career option until I got into college, and I was doing an art path through college. And then like my second year in, my advisor was like, hey, we've got this program we're starting with some colleges in California and Warner Brothers about teaching y'all how to do animation. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. That sounds fun. And I did that through college, and I got married shortly after, and kind of went by the wayside doing art stuff for a little while. But then, I started submitting portfolios to animation studios, and got some good feedback. Probably could have got on somewhere, but then I had a kid, as things go.
Yeah.
And it was just I wanted to draw. I wanted to tell stories in some way, and so I decided, I was going to try to get into comics, and I guess now it's a good segue into how we met.
I was going to ask, like, were you, because of what your all's parents did, were they encouraging of you all, like Dan, you writing, and Chris, you doing art?
My parents were very encouraging. My dad didn't understand a goddamn thing I was doing.
If it helps any, I've been doing graphic design 31 years. My dad, when he explains, he's like, he does menus for restaurants for a living. That's what he does.
Yeah, my dad, and he's always, as a child, I was never want for anything. My brother and I, we got everything we wanted, and because my dad had a very rough childhood, so he made sure that we had a great childhood, and we did. And so my father, if I said, look, I want to make movies, I need a Super 8 camera. My next Christmas, I had a Super 8 camera. Oh, now everything's video, Dad. So I had a video camera, Oh, I need a word processor because I want to write my scripts. Okay, boom. He was very supportive of everything. When my friends and I got around the dining room table at night to play Dungeons and Dragons, he would check in. He'd never understood the game, never played with us or anything, but he let me be me, and that is the great. And he may have been disappointed, and I don't mean to make that sound weird or bad. He may have been disappointed that I wasn't the son that could have been, but by no means was he disappointed in me as a son, if that makes sense.
Okay.
He was very, very supportive of whatever I wanted to try, whatever I wanted to do. Sure, he would have loved it if I, was a relief pitcher or, playing second base somewhere or, something along those lines, or, an architect or whatever. But I had an overactive imagination, and he was whatever, do what makes you happy and what makes you, do. And mom, whatever. And mom, I mean, like, Hero Happy Hour, my dad was still alive when that came out, when it first came out. And it was kind of a huge deal. You remember back then, Jody.
Yeah.
For two guys that knew nothing about comic books and never put out a comic book. My dad never read it. He never read any of my writings. Never read any of my screenplays, never read any of my comics, never read any of my work. Mom did, but not my dad. But dad was still encouraging about it.
Yeah. Oh, I have told both my parents they can't listen to any episodes of this podcast. It's like, that's it. No, I can't do it. Okay, Chris.
My parents were, I feel like they were indifferent to what I wanted to do, as long as, I was happy and, able to afford, to rent and all that good stuff. My dad has always, been really supportive, though, as far as, encouraging, and I don't think either of my parents really read anything I've done either. But they flipped through it, which I guess that's the best I can ask for as an artist. But yeah, I mean, I'd say they were, just like it, just fairly average. It's like, as long as you've got a job and money and you're happy, good for you.
Yeah,
But my dad's always been really cool about it.
that's cool. What got you all into comics? We'll go with Dan first.
Well, I was a huge Spider-Man fan as a kid. That was my thing. Spider. I'm a Marvel guy, not a DC guy. Though I do appreciate, Superman. But no, comics were easy read. They were imaginative stories. There were mostly pictures. Again, if I'm a lazy artist, I'm also a lazy reader. Because a lot of these times when I could be reading, I could be writing. So I don't, as a writer, I do not read enough, and that's just because I want to write rather than read. But comic books were easy to read back in the day. They were affordable as a kid. They had them at 7-Eleven. They were easily obtainable. I found a comic book shop early. I found out how great, big I really got into comic books with Miller's Daredevil run. And that's how I got into comics as a fan. As I got into comics as a creator was, well, it was quite by accident, sort of. It just seemed like an easy medium to do as a writer. I didn't have to write a real long novel. I could just write basically notes for an artist and let the artist worry about
it. I'm waiting on something from the peanut gallery of like,
No, it's all right. Sure. But well, for me, it started with going to Food Giant with my grandmother, because they had these kind of the shallower, taller baskets, and I would sit underneath when I was little, and I would get to read a comic as she shopped and ride along. And then, if I was good or whatever, I could put that comic back and she'd buy me one that I hadn't read yet. And that was really cool, doing that. And then I kind of didn't pay a lot of attention much as I got older, and then junior high or so, I met a couple friends who were both into comics, and I was like, yeah, comics are cool. I just don't know much about what's going on with them. And that's where I learned, where comic shops around the city were. And we would, go to one of our houses and we would like swap books and read. And it was cool. It was like you see in the movies almost, but it was fun.
And this will be more of a Chris question. Is there a media that you prefer when you work digital, or do you work digitally, or do you work by hand?
Let me answer that for him.
No, I work in on an iPad Procreate now.
Okay.
I started, with just this terrible Georgia Pacific cardstock and Sharpies, and where I'd have to scan them and put them together in whatever kind of graphics program. It was like Photoshop 3 or something at the time.
Oh my God.
But it must have been. But yeah, it was. I prefer digitally now because I can do so many different kind of styles that I can't mimic traditionally. My traditional stuff, either if I want it to look as slick as some of like my line work in comics, it takes me a very long time. Or if I want it to look real chunky and crazy and sketchy and weird, I can do that real fast. And I enjoy doing that. I just don't. I don't have the. I don't. It's cheaper to not buy materials most of the time.
I don't know what you're talking about there. It's all so affordable. It's so crazy affordable. It's insane. I'm trying to work my way up to an art show here to have a gallery showing. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to sell a kidney or something to be able to afford to do this damn show. So, okay. So how did you all meet?
Way back, we're talking 23 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I went to Comic-Con because San Diego Comic-Con was close enough for me to attend most of the time. And I wanted to make a comic book. So I went into one of those panels there where it was how to make a comic book. And the basic premise of the panel was, if you start it, complete it. And don't show, you're never going to break into the industry showing, your portfolio of artwork or your scripts that you type, because they're not going to read, they're not going to take time to read them. They're not going to, take time to look if you send them. I mean, if you go to a portfolio review, that's different, but they're not going to. Their editors are busy people, and I completely understand that because I was one afterwards. So then I walked out of that Comic-Con. Okay, next year I'm coming to Comic-Con with a comic book, and I will have a completed comic book. That's what they said. The guy, I can't remember who had the panel or the seminar on it, but he says, come with a complete comic book. I mean, not a printed PDF of not paper stapled together, a final comic book with a glossy cover and the whole standard size. So that was my goal, and I jumped on digital webbing. I don't know if you remember that website back in the day where artists and writers would try to find each other to make comic books. And I saw an ad in the classifieds there of some punk kid looking for wanting to do an artist who was looking for a writer with a script. And I think Chris wanted to do a noir cop detective type thing.
Yeah, I was really into Ed McBain.
I didn't have any of that available. And in fact, I didn't even have a comic book script. I had a script for a short film that I wrote called Superhero Happy Hour. Because at that point I hung out in a bar a lot. And I call it research. And I knew I could shoot a movie at my neighborhood bar, and I want to do superheroes because of I liked superheroes, but I knew costumes would be a bitch to afford on a small short film independent budget, especially boots. Yeah. So I figured if I make all my superheroes sitting behind a bar, I only need to dress them from the waist up. Okay. That is the genesis of Superhero Happy Hour.
Oh my God.
So I wrote this script and I just sent it to Chris saying, here's a script, a short film script I wrote. What do you think of it? And I think he liked it. And I didn't even turn it into a comic book script. He worked off of that short film script. Okay. I said, break the pages. I knew nothing about it. I said, break the pages how you think they should be up. I don't know, So it turned out to be a 36-page comic story instead of 22 or whatever. And so now Chris can explain more or get more detail about it, but basically what happened was I was in California, he's in Alabama. We did everything. I mean, we'd had emails, but neither one of us had a scanner or anything. So he would, like you said, do this artwork on this paper and Sharpies and mail it to me. And then I would,
God.
I think I invested on a scanner. So we did it for a whole year. We worked on this comic book through snail mail. And then he lettered it. I worried about, I found Scott Morse did our cover for us, which was awesome. I worried about the nuts and bolts of formatting it and getting it to, finding a printer and handling all that. Chris handled the art and the lettering for it. And I don't know, anything you want to interject at this point, Chris?
No, I mean, you're doing pretty good. I believe you sent me like 2 or 3 different possible projects. One we did a little mini comic of for a show. It might have been Mid Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I don't think I have much to add. It's about how I remember it.
So yes, by the time I went to San Diego, I walked up and I had 50 copies of the comic with me, and I just handed it to professionals and stuff. I remember I was at the Marriott bar there having drinks, and Scott Morse bought me a beer, and he goes, "How's it feel?" And I go, "How's what feel?" He goes, "To be a professional."
That's
awesome. That was a great moment. And I remember I handed it to Peter David because nobody was at his table, and he made me stand there in front of him while he read it.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Yeah, he critiqued. Yeah, that's a good impersonation of. So he read it and he made a couple notes on it right then and there, but in general he liked it. Because back in the day when we were doing this, we were on the Bendis board. I know. Okay. I know, Jody, you and I knew each other more from Steve Niles' Inner Sanctum board, but so Bendis was a big supporter of it. He read it. He gave me, he plugged it for it. And then, the people on the Bendis board, they had updates on how we were doing it, how it was coming along and everything. So they were a big supporter. So that helped having that community in our back pocket. But yeah, I ended up taking it to the Diamond booth. And because remember, I made it in my desk in the corner of my bedroom. And I took it to the Diamond booth and I said, "Hey, who do I see about to get my book in Diamond?" And the guy goes, "Well, do you have it right there?" And I go, "Yeah." And I hand it to him. He goes, "Ooh, Scott Morse cover. That's nice." And he kind of flipped through it and, he dug it right there. He goes, "This is pretty impressive. This is, your first effort." I go, "Yeah, we have no idea what we were doing." And so he said, "Here's my card." And it turned out he was like the vice president or something at Diamond. And he says, "If you don't hear back from, a rep from Diamond in the next 2 weeks, give me a call." So 2 weeks later, I did not hear from a rep. I called him. He goes, "What? Nobody's gotten hold of you yet? Hang up right now." I hung up. My phone rang 5 minutes later with someone saying, "I got to get your book in the catalog."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So Superhero Happy Hour was I think officially went in the solicitation for January of 2023 or 2002.
2002.
Okay. Yeah. 2002. Because it's his 21st birthday this year.
Right.
Wow.
And so we not only did we get in an independent book, just like that, we got the spotlight in Diamond.
Wow.
So now I think the number wise, our book sold issue one sold pretty well. We were in the top 200,
Nice.
maybe 198, but we were still beat out 2 Marvel titles, I think. Uh, and so it kind of snowballed for a little while. It was a lot of fun for a while,
Yeah. And then, so Chris, for my timeline, Greg and I joined the Niles board in 02, and then I met you at Wizard World Chicago in 03. And that's where I picked up my copies of it. Still was called Superhero Happy Hour at that point.
Yeah, and I was at that was actually the digital webbing booth
Okay.
that I was at that Chicago show, and I flew out there, and everybody else at that booth was pissed off at me because I was printing money at that con because Superhero Happy Hour was outselling everybody else's stuff at that table. And I was like, well, sorry, just
That was such a weird con because we were hanging out with Ben Templesmith and Niles a little bit, but then it was like we turned a corner and there's Tim Bradstreet sitting on Artist Alley. Yeah. And it was like, what the why are you no, hey, let's get you somewhere else, because what is and he was just sitting there just doodling. I was like, this is amazing. It just kept bumping into people. I was like, wait, you're Brian Azzarello? Holy crap. Like, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the guy who did B. Clay Moore, who did Hawaiian Dick. Mm-hmm. I literally bumped into him. Like, he turned a corner and hit me, and I looked down his name tag. I was like, oh, I like your book. And he was like, how do you know who I was like, dude, we're at Comic-Con, man. Come on. Of course.
I had my first meeting with an agent at that con.
Really?
Somebody set up, and and so Superhero Happy Hour, we did 4 issues with Superhero Happy Hour, I think is the title. But I remember I went for our big Hollywood meeting because it was Chris and I entertained were entertained with the possibility of an animated series.
Oh,
we got a manager agent. It worked. It was fun. Chris, I did all the legwork on it because Chris was in Alabama. So, I got to drive to LA and take all the meetings and then call Chris on the way home and say, this is what happened. And it was, I met with different production houses, different companies, blah, blah, blah. But I came home for my first one and there's a FedEx next day letter waiting for me on my porch.
Mm-hmm.
I go, oh, and I look at it and it says DC and Marvel. I go, DC and Marvel? Oh, okay. I rip it open. I go, Dad, we hit the big time. Cease and desist letter for using the term superhero in the title of our book. Now, this was just as we were doing meetings with Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to do? So I ended up, our manager got us an entertainment lawyer, and he worked pro bono to get, work with Marvel and DC, say, hey, look, the guys will change the name of their book. Let them sell the remaining stock that they have of the regular title, and everything will be fine. And they said, fine, no problem. So I think I was at one of these Hollywood meetings, and they're like, oh, what are you going to call the book now? Because hey guys, we got to tell you, we're kind of, and they're like, oh, what are you going to call it now? And I said, Hero Happy Hour. And they went, we love it. It's alliteration. That's perfect. So we started negotiating for Hero Happy Hour. It got to the point where contracts were being faxed back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Faxed. Oh my God.
And our representation at the time wanted more, while Chris and I were like, no, let's do this now. Yeah. This isn't even our good idea. We'll take the $600,000 and be happy with that. Mm-hmm. And he was holding out for $1 million plus and various
oh my God
things. And so they just dropped they didn't even counter offer. They said, no, thanks. Bye.
Wow.
Yep.
And
that's insane.
Yeah. So we did but then life got in the way, I had things going on in my life. Chris had things going on in his life. And, we full disclosure here, we never made any money off of Hero Happy Hour or Superhero Happy Hour. I mean, when you talk about printing runs, and Chris and I worked for free. He never got paid a cent to do the artwork. I never got paid a cent to write the scripts. You know, we paid a couple people to do covers for us, like Jim Mahfood and Dave Crossland. But everything else, you know, I charged the print runs on my credit cards, and you know, and then go into cons, and I'd be lucky if I made enough to pay for airfare and table space. Lucky. I mean, I mean, we had 3 issues, and Chris came out to San Diego, and we did really, when we were up against that wall.
Yeah, on the back wall.
Yeah, we did great. I mean, we made, for what it cost a lot of money to have a table at San Diego. And this was 20 years ago too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we made our money the Wednesday preview night, Thursday day of the show, and everything else after that was gravy for us.
Okay.
But still, I mean, that's just for covering that show.
Yeah.
So we made like maybe $1,500, but again, I had to, you know, pay those credit card bills for the printing, had to, you know, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, if anything, superhero happy hour / hero happy hour was a very, very expensive on self-publishing comic books.
Which, use it almost like a calling card or something. It's like, here, we did this.
Yeah.
Now what can we do next? And
we both thought our intentions were that it would lead us to other, you know, other things. Because our claim art was that it wasn't even our good idea. We had better ideas.
Hey now,
yeah, like this was the one that just made me laugh the most.
I like that book.
Oh, I mean, I like it too. I mean, and it went way further than we ever thought it would go, to be honest with you. I mean, the last one we did that was Hero Happy Hour versus the Supreme Leader, where it's basically the Hideout Bar and Grill against North Korea. And you know, and Chris and I are always talking about returning back to it and just doing a little something, you know, doing something with Hero Happy Hour again. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. It just can't afford it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Like, because I come from the world of printing, and printing's a freaking nightmare, and it's getting harder and harder. Like the printer I deal with here, he's like, oh, I only get an allotment of paper every month. We can't get, the supply chain crap is really hitting them hard. And he was like, it's kind of a nightmare to try and get anything printed. He's like, I need a lot of heads up if you need something printed. I was like, I'll do what I can, but what a pain in the ass. Like,
I mean, it's great now that, you know, would-be comic creators have the internet and they could do web comics, or they could, you know, people are getting more used to the idea of PDFs and stuff like that.
Comixology, all that kind of stuff.
So that's a great venue, but it's still, I mean, like we'll talk about, you know, we're doing a physical comic book with Star Marshals coming out.
Yeah.
But it's, I would not in 100 years at this point try to break into comics or make a living on comics.
Okay.
Sorry, all you people out there.
Well, you just, half of the audience just turned it off. They're like, the hell, there goes my drink. No, just kidding. So you mentioned Star Marshals. So where did the idea for Star Marshals? Was it one of the other two that you?
It wasn't, but it's
okay.
I wrote the script shortly after, you know, when Superhero Happy Hour was in its highlight. Because the script's over 20 years old, easily.
Okay.
And I think I gave it to Chris. Do you want to do it? No, I don't, you know, way back then, you know, and I've had different artists. Look, I've been sitting on the script. Here, you do it. And they're like, no. Or they do like character designs and then they ghost me. Or, you know, they get a real paying gig come up, which, because, you know, I was looking for a collaborator at that point, because Chris has always been a collaborator. We've worked with everything. Just we're in this together. We're gonna swim or die together.
All right.
And that's hard to and I could at that point I couldn't afford a work for hire artist to do the book, and I'd chum around with a new artist and okay, this is great, yeah, let's do this, and they'd lose interest in it, or so they just couldn't find the voice for it, which is fine. But then I came into a little bit of money, and I just went, Chris, you're doing the book, here's the money, boom, and and I just outright paid Chris for the first time over 20 years working together. I paid Chris to do art for me.
And well, it was the beginning of this year, and I've been working for the past couple of years in film and television as a graphic designer and illustrator, and nothing was really happening this year because the writer's strike was looming, and now that it's in full effect, there's absolutely nothing for crew unless things are already written and in production. Outside of that, there's no gigs, and I work out of Atlanta, and this year there were like half the number of productions as there were last year at the same time, earlier in the year, and it was just couldn't get a gig. So Dan really kind of helped me out there to get through a couple months of paying rent. by doing Star Marshals, and I don't think it's not that I never really wanted to do it. I think just life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it, and I hope people dig it. It's a good gig.
So what is the premise of Star Marshals?
Star Marshals is a sci-fi buddy cop story.
Okay.
It's very much in the line of Hero Happy Hour, where in Hero Happy Hour, superheroes talking in a bar. These are two space cops talking in their cruiser.
No boots. So no boots this time either.
They get up and walk around, but
they float around. Yeah.
So it's like in Hero Happy Hour, I made fun of superhero tropes. That's mostly what I did what Chris and I did with that book, or tried to get across that book, is we are going to make fun of superhero tropes. What we do in Star Marshals is we make fun of buddy cop stories like Lethal Weapon, or even there's a lot of Adam 12 in it. I'm going to tell you this.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
It's a lot of it's cross between Lethal Weapon and Adam 12, but also Star Wars. And so we making fun of the sci-fi tropes as well. And again, it's a lot of them just talking back and forth with each other. But this time, Chris had to draw spaceships and aliens, and
which I love. I'm good with the aliens.
There is a bar, because we have a bar in everything we do. But it's a 40-page story, and all the artwork's done, all the lettering's done. There's a finished book. I could mail you the PDF right now.
Okay.
Jody, and so unlike other Kickstarter, because we are crowdfunding this one through Zoop, and unlike Kickstarter stuff, we're not going. The book is done. I mean, it is done, except for bonus material that I'm working on, adding in the back, which is like schematics of the ship and fake ads.
Yeah, Dan drew those.
Well, you drew them, but I'm making them look good. How about that?
You are.
Oh my God.
You are. I agree.
And
100%.
But yeah, so because everybody kickstarts a comic now, and so I don't know if you were familiar with Zoop, but they only do comics.
Yeah, I interviewed Jason Copeland about Full Tilt, and that was the first time I'd heard of Zoop, and he was, because he's in Canada, and he was like, I love it because shipping from Canada to the States, where most of my people are, would cost me an insane, crazy amount of money. So they handle it all there in the States and fulfill it. And he was like, I love it.
There's two ways Zoop does it. They do it like that, where they take care of everything, or they just do the crowdfunding for you.
Okay.
And they're going to send me the stuff. But I'm going to go through Kablam. That's my plan right now, is go through Kablam, and they'll print it and they'll send it out. So I will never physically touch anything except for a few, special items. But so yeah, it's a 40-page comic, and it's going to have 8 pages of bonus material. So we're talking 48. It's a chunky boy. We've got Chris's wonderful cover, and I've worked with Chris so long, I just say, do what you want to do.
Yeah. And
then he sends me the pages. I go, okay, that's fine. I love it. It's great. Except, or I'll say, make that. How about instead of that character being that character, make this character that character? But that's it. What I don't nitpick Chris with what he turns in, because we're pretty much on the same wavelength with everything, with all the Hero Happy Hour we worked at and everything. And I trust Chris, and I trust his eye. He doesn't change my, if I break it down into panels, he sticks to it for the most part. So we're great. We work together very well.
So this is a 40-pager. Is there opportunity to do more, or is this a one and done?
Oh, sure.
I've already got 4 other stories plotted out, and I would love to do more, because it's how it's based out. The average sitcom is 22 minutes long. The average hour show on television is 44 minutes long. It is a 1 hour, 1 hour police procedural is what it is, clocking in at 40 pages. So I got some artist pals to do variant covers for me, because shortly after Hero Happy Hour did so well, I was brought on with IDW Publishing to be an editor with them, with their Transformers line, and our first book was with EJ Sue. EJ Sue and I have remained friends all this time since we back. So EJ Sue is doing a cover for Star Marshals, and it is fucking awesome, and it's already done. I've got it in hand, ready to go. Steve Musgrave from Keepwell stuff, he did a very risque cover, so we're gonna have an adult only cover. And Steve Conley is our other, who does middle age webcomic, and he also, I knew him originally from doing Star Trek Year 5 missions back with IDW. So we've got those 3 artists doing the variant covers for us, and I've got a letterer who did the lettering for us. So the book is done, and it's going to be, by the time this podcast drops, I think the crowdfunding will be in its 2nd day. And it'll be at zoop.gg /Star Marshals.
The link you gave me, zoop.gg/C Star Marshals. I'm gonna make sure this link works. I do like with them that you can sign up for get notified. That's really nice.
And so when it'll show all the, and it's very basic. We're just offering the comic, and you can get any of the covers you want. You can get all the covers if you want. We're not gonna, there's not a lot of, there's no t-shirts. I got a stretch goal where you get stickers. I think here's the Star Marshals sticker, of their badge. There's going to be a, Junior Star Marshal Cadet Club, a digital version, a physical version. The digital version, you get, you'll just get a link to where you get all this stuff like you would get in a fan club, a business, a membership card you can cut out, some wanted posters of some villains, and the physical one. And now there's just an add-on. It's it's not a tier. You just something you add on if you get one of the other things. The physical one's going to come in a neat custom mailer, and it's going to actually have a physical cloth embroidered patch and
holy shit,
buttons and wanted cards, and the club membership card is plastic. So we're I'm trying to make it as neat as possible and fill in. I don't even know all the stuff that's going to go into it yet, but I keep, I got to do this. Oh, I'm going to add this. Like, I think Chris and I started work today on the coloring book that's going to be included in that.
Oh my God.
And it's going to be it's going to be the 10
I've got
most
about half of
wanted.
them drawn up, sketched up. I'm gonna once I get them all sketched, I'll send them to you for approval.
It's going to be the 10 most wanted,
That's
criminals.
Amazing.
And so we're just trying to come up with fun stuff like you would have, like you would have gotten like the Lone Ranger fan club back in the 50s or something. We're kind of coming up with that sort of stuff. And so, yes, you can get Steve's Musgrave's filthy, dirty cover and this fun kid coloring books too. It's however you want to do it. But yeah, it's just like for a test run, and I don't know if we're going to offer these yet.
Okay.
I've got these.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Star Marshal badges. And so we might have the file for that you can download as a stretch goal, and you can make your own Star Marshal badge if you want, out of 3D printed.
Nice.
So we're just the goal with this is, since it's done, it's easy. I'm not going to stress about it, like I do previous Kickstarters. Kickstarters are such a bitch to run. The book is done. We're not adding on a bunch of, there's no coffee mug, there's no t-shirt, there's none of this stuff. You can get the club member fun kit if you want, but it's limited to 40, because I'm not going to get a whole bunch of these made. We'll see if we need stretch goals, we'll add stretch goals, but basically the basic thing is just the comic book. One of 4 covers, or all 4 covers.
Okay.
Or the PDF if you don't want to do the physical.
I still can't get used to the digital comics. I've tried. I can't. I like having I also still do physical books. Like I can't do Kindle or any of that stuff. It's just
so
I'm on the screen. I'm on the screen all day. I don't need another screen. Like, yeah.
And so Star Marshals, it's just a fun, jokey, buddy cop thing. It's got some amazing aliens in there. They've got a robot on their ship that's kind of a schizoid dual personality. Because like the lore of this is, it's always 2 marshals in one ship. Like, Adam 12, Pete Malloy and Jim Reed. But they got one droid to maintain the ship and one droid to act as their linguistics droid, because there's so many different languages in all the galaxies. They just don't work in one galaxy. It's intergalactic justice coalition, so it's multiple galaxies.
Okay.
So there's a lot of languages out there. Well, they're in a previous story that we're not privy to. They lost their their linguistic droid, so his memory bank is in the engineering droid, so it switches over between the two at the wrong inappropriate times. So we're having fun with that. And it's a weird, I don't know, it's a weird story, right, Chris? Just the way it works out, it's like, kind of expecting something else, but that was it, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure before I read it what to expect, but it was fun. It flows well. It's had some great imagery in the script. Hopefully, I pulled off on the page. As far as these cool backgrounds and stuff that Dan wrote, and it's fun and it's funny. And I mean, if you like science fiction, if you like a little bit of action, if you like things that are funny, it should be right up your alley.
And we have a whole 2.5 page gag on Chinese food.
Of course.
But it's not Chinese food, it's some weird alien food.
Oh my God.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, when we're all done here, Jody, I'll just send you the PDF and you can check it out, because I know you'll buy it anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you put up a Kickstarter that I have not? But I don't think so.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So let's do some rapid fire questions before I let y'all go. So what would you all like to see more of in comics? Because I feel like comics are in a weird place right now.
Tone it down. Give me 20 great DC issues a month and give me 20 great Marvel issues a month.
Yeah.
with a separate superhero in each one. We don't need all these crossovers. We don't need all this, earth shattering event. And I'm not opposed to, reboot. Come on, Spider-Man, Peter Parker's how old now? 70? If we're good, do the math. I mean, just don't try to stay in the same time. Go ahead. That's what one of the good things about when they did Marvel, unlimited Marvel stuff. They rebooted it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Dan just said, and I'd like to see some more all ages titles. I just we were kids when we got into comics. And I feel like it's difficult for kids to get into comics, specifically for some of the reasons Dan mentioned. You've got these long histories that, the kid does not want to get into, 60 years of this character's backstory to understand what's going on today. It just should be more, not everything. There should be some great things that are all kinds of weird, but they should be more accessible.
Yeah.
We shouldn't worry about canon so much.
Yeah. There was, I remember the Hitman comic from Garth Ennis that one of the Batman crossover events was happening, and they made him do an issue because Hitman was in the Batman universe. They made him do it, and it was literally Hitman and his buddy in a bar going, it sounds like there's a lot going on out there, but we're not going to go out there. And that was the entire issue. I was like, yeah, I love it. Love it. Screw everything else. I love that right there. Of like, we're not going to do this.
It's like everybody's trying to be gimmicky and edgy. And I mean, I got a full disclosure. I have not read any of the new comics and for a while now. I'll still pick up independent titles, have Noah, their own little world, tell their own little story. I love those. But I would love to read a good Spider-Man, but it doesn't need to be dragged into everything else. And it doesn't, it would be fun if Spider-Man stories again, somehow, some way, were just him stopping the shocker from robbing a bank again.
Yeah.
Like they were in the 70s and early 80s even,
yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. If you could work with anyone, who would you want to work with? Of course, not with each other, but other people.
No, that's how it works. It's a package deal. Honestly, there are too many people. There's nobody. I go on Twitter and I just will on Instagram and I will just follow artists whose artwork I like.
Yeah.
And I know their Twitter names. I don't even know who they really are, And I'm just like, God, if I find out that this artist can do sequentials, I'm going to be all over them. But it's new. I like untapped talent. There's no, I don't know. I couldn't tell you who's working in comics nowadays. I mean, yeah, I would love to do a book with Gabriel Rodriguez, Lock and Key, because I remember him back in my IDW days and his stuff is gorgeous. But I would, it's nobody. Anybody who I'd want to work with is not necessarily because of their skill. It's because of how well I could work with them. And not to say that Chris has no skill, but we work really damn well together. And he's got great skill. And somebody who's enthusiastic about the project and is having a fun time with the project and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's a hard question to answer as far as
I don't think I have any names that I could name either. I mean, I haven't read a whole lot. I read Do a Power Bomb. That's like the last thing I've read in probably the past couple of years, other than just seeing things online here and there. My local comic shop closed a while back, so I don't really have a place to go. There's a couple places around town, but they're either small or angry, and that's just the way it goes.
I think they've always been angry.
that's true. But yes, if I mean people who are writers who would be into the same weird things I am, like mixes of sci-fi and comedy and westerns and superheroes and whatever. if it's something that seems like would be fun. It's just right now, it's about it'd be great to get paid, but it's making comics. I've made comics for so long, like collaboratively with Dan, that that's the kind of relationship I would want with anyone else, is someone who kind of lets me do my thing and trusts me and I trust him, and like we just do a good job together.
Okay. Do you all know what you would like to do in the next 10 years?
I have a book that Dan and I kind of conceived back in, it was 2010 or so, called Wild Waste, and I've been picking at it a little bit. I would love to do that for a good long while. If Dan wants to join me in writing it, because he stepped back and said, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want to with it," and so that's kind of what I'm doing, and I would like to get that done and out into the world. Hopefully it doesn't take 10 years, even though it's taken more than 10 years to me to get. I got about 40 pages drawn. So,
well, as you know,
I've got double that written.
Jody, I'm doing the Catacombs and Comedians now.
Yeah.
Which is a live stage show at comedy clubs where I am dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons, playing group of stand-up comics, different comics in every city we're in. So I'm really getting more in tune with the tabletop role-playing game stuff, but I would love to do something that melds comic books and role-playing games together, storytelling. But yeah, I mean, I love Dungeons and Dragons and I love the tabletop role-playing game in general. But I think, if you were to do a book that's half comic book and half, comic book with the story in the beginning and then all the stats and, the adventures and maps and stuff in the back, I think that would be ideal. What projects for me to work on that I would love to do. But just, I mean, I've got stories. I want to tell stories, and that's
the answer. Tell stories.
A while back when I was left IDW, project I wrote and created called Pirate Tales, were about pirates that were rats, kind of my mouse guard, but rats as pirates. And IDW published the first 2 issues of 5 before canceling it. I would love to return and finish that or reboot it altogether,
Okay.
And it's mine. It's not IDW's. I can do whatever I want with it. So
yeah.
Again, I can't afford an artist to pay, and I'm not going to ask Chris to draw 110 pages on on spec. So that would be a dream project. I've got a very, 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 very rough first draft of a novella based on that done. I don't know if I'll ever have time to polish it up and get it completed and put it out, and then just pay Chris, for spot illustration artwork throughout. But
nice.
No, I would love to do Pirate Tales and get that back out in the future. And I come up with a new idea and I've got the attention span of a gnat and the imagination of a 6-year-old. So I come up with a new story and a new project I want to do every week.
I hear you. I have an envelope box sitting over here with Post-it notes and scribbles and stuff. And I figured it up. I went through it a couple years ago. I was like, if I could take 2 years off and just focus on this and pay people to do some of the things that are in there, like build a coffee table that I've built a schematic for, drawn a schematic for. I was like, I still couldn't get through this entire damn box in 2 years. Like, yeah, it's just, I just love creating the, the material and stuff around, like with the Catacombs of Comedians. This is a monster trading card. Stats on the back, Yeah.
Excuse me. That's the stuff I like doing. I just like creating and dabbling and doing things. So I want to win the lottery so I can just do all that.
I think that's all 3 of us here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being on. And I'll provide links and everything. It will be down in the bio and in the text for this, but I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me. And I will keep you posted on it. And because because I'm I'm getting ready to get into my hustling mode. I got a week of or a month of hustling that I'm going to have to sell this project.
God.
Everybody,
Oh,
Right.
make enough money back that I paid Chris to draw it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.